Hey, Aubrey, welcome back from Mexico. How was it?
It was amazing. It was so fun. The beach, hanging out with friends. I had a blast. And I had a really fun experience with my Spanish, Jessica.
Really? Was it fun and or funny? Because those adjectives mean two different things, and students
It's
mix those up
true.
all the time.
Yes, we're talking about that today, you guys. I'm excited for you to get this insider look on this very native vocab, but it was funny. I was in on the joke, which feels so good in a language you're learning. We were like
Yes.
trying to find out when this place would close, and the guy made a really funny joke in Spanish saying like, "Oh, we'll probably be closed on Tuesday." And it was like Saturday, and I laughed and I'm like, oh, "I'm in on the joke." It felt so good.
Guys, we did a recent episode called How to Be Funny on IELTS Speaking. It's episode 1422. If you missed that, scroll up. Because, funny and fun, these two words are so simple, but they're not the same, and
Right.
students mix them up all the time, right? So to be funny is like, ha 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 ha. So scroll up to episode 1422, How to Be Funny on IELTS Speaking. And today we are going to teach you 4 filler phrases with the word funny. And you're going to learn how, in these phrases that are totally natural, great for IELTS speaking, using the word funny here also does not mean ha 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 funny. So there's a lot to learn today, guys.
Exactly right. Sometimes in English, funny actually means weird.
Mhm.
In fact, often in a lot of phrases, when we say
Yes.
funny, we mean weird. And it can be super useful on IELTS. But this is going to help you not only on the IELTS exam, but in your life speaking English. Just know that not every time someone says funny, do they mean like they would laugh at that.
Right, exactly, yeah. It's surprising how often it just means, "Huh, that's interesting slash
Hmm,
weird," because
it's
that's
funny.
often what it means.
In
Alright.
fact, there's this funny phrase where sometimes people will say funny haha or funny weird because you're using
Yeah.
the same word and it's like maybe sometimes you're not sure.
Yep, that's true. Okay, so thank you to student Zwelly who asked this question in a recent webinar. The question is, in speaking, can I start with funny you should ask? And the answer is yes, you can, as long as you're using it correctly. So, guys, first we'll teach you 4 filler phrases with the word funny. And then in the second half of the show, we'll give you examples of using these phrases on real IELTS questions. All right. So, what does that phrase mean, Aubrey? Funny you should ask.
Yeah, it just means it's kind of maybe a strange coincidence, right?
Yes.
It doesn't mean anything's actually funny. There's no joke here. There's nothing you would laugh at. It
Right.
means like this is coincidental. Maybe something happened to you just that morning that's related to this. Then it would be perfect. Funny you should ask. Just this morning, I was thinking about this.
Yeah, exactly. Or like if a coworker or a friend says, hey, have you ever been to Mexico? And Aubrey would be like, funny you should ask. I just got back. I was just there
Exactly.
last weekend. Right? It's just like, oh, what a crazy coincidence that you're
Yeah.
asking me about this
And
right
for
now.
part 1, this is so much more informal than saying like, "That is quite a coincidence," or "How coincidental." Those are actually quite formal phrases, whereas this is very casual. This is very informal to say, "Funny you should ask."
Right. Or the overused, that's an interesting question.
Ooh, yeah.
Students say that all the time, guys, but we want you to use better filler phrases. So that first one, funny you should ask, was great. And then the second one is actually funny this should come up because, and that essentially means the same thing, right? What the examiner asked you about, like it coincidentally relates to something in your immediate past, right? Something that happened more or less recently.
Exactly. Very similar meaning. So, an important note here is you wouldn't want to use these and say, funny, you should ask, or, oh, funny, this should come up, and then just answer the question without pointing out the coincidence. That would be
Exactly.
strange. You want to immediately follow up with what happened recently that makes this very coincidental.
Exactly. And remember, guys, in the second half of today's show, we will give you examples of how to use these in part 1, part 2, and part 3 answers. All right. So the third phrase, that's kind of a funny question, or what a funny question. So the intonation here is really important. And again, it It doesn't this one isn't just about coincidences, although it can be used like that, but it could also be used if the examiner asks you a really weird question, right? Because this meaning is actually more broad, right? It's not just about a
Yes.
coincidence.
And this might happen. You might
Yeah,
be asked a question that's sort of strange, kind of out of left field. You haven't thought about it before. Absolutely comment on it. The examiner knows it's strange too.
yeah.
They did not come up with this question. So it's probably going to be fun for them for you to comment on it. And this is the perfect way. That's kind of a funny question. Does not mean it's actually funny and you're laughing. It means that's a strange question.
Means that's weird. Nobody would
That's
ask
really weird.
that in real life. All right, and the final phrase is, you know, a funny thing happened related to this. And that does sound more formal. There's definitely a lot more complex structure grammatically happening in there. But again, it means the same thing as the first two, right? Like something happened recently that directly connects to this question. And that's
Yeah, this
weird.
could be exactly right. This could be perfect for part 3. If you're sharing something that happened in your town or city, maybe about crime or healthcare or
Yeah,
something specific that was strange and related, a funny thing happened related to this where I live when crime rates rose. It's not that it's really funny, it's that it's strange. It was a weird
exactly.
coincidence.
Exactly. All right. So we're going to show you how to use these four phrases. So I'm going to answer a couple part one questions first. Aubrey, what's the first question?
All right. How often do you go to the cinema?
Funny you should ask because I actually just joined Cinemark's movie club yesterday. No joke. I'm not even lying about this. I do love going to the movies and I want to go more, but it's so expensive. And then I looked into the whole Cinemark movie club thing and it is less than $12 a month, which is the price of like one movie ticket, less than one movie ticket, but you get all these added benefits. So, long story short, I'm gonna go a lot more.
Oh, such a great answer. Such a great way to start that answer and then just share why this is coincidental. And also, I'm jealous. I've always wanted to be part of one of those movie clubs. So I
Oh,
just go to the movies all the time.
me too. It's seriously so worth it. I was like, is it gonna save me money? Yes, I'm doing it.
Absolutely. I know. For me, I would have to buy it for 6 people probably. So it's a little pricier.
Yeah. Nope.
Okay, here's your next question. Are you ready?
Yep.
Also, a part 1 question. Do you often go to art galleries or museums?
You know, a funny thing happened related to this, which is really weird. It's funny that you should ask that because last Sunday, I was supposed to meet some friends. James and I were supposed to meet some friends at an art museum. And we drove there, we get there, and it turns out the museum is closed, right? And like to answer your question, we don't often go to art museums. So we were excited to do this, but it was closed. So instead, we had a wonderful 3-mile walk along the river and just the best conversations the entire time, and it actually turned out to be a magical day, minus the art museum.
Nice. I love that you showed that you can actually stack a couple of these. You
Yeah.
were like, it's a funny thing happened related to this. So it's so funny you should ask because you can absolutely use both. We do this, right?
And you know what? I lied a little bit in that answer because it
Mhm.
wasn't an art museum that we met at. It was a science museum that we met at. So it's guys, just I want to show you that you can be a little flexible. You can fib, you can lie a little bit, but
Absolutely.
still base your answer on real experiences that are easier to describe.
That's such a good strategy, right? Because if you haven't been to an art museum lately, it might be a little more difficult to come up with a full lie, making up all the details.
Yeah.
But if you can talk about something recent that happened that was sort of related, you don't have to admit that it wasn't an art museum. The examiner doesn't care.
Exactly. All right, Aubrey, I'm going to ask you a couple questions now. Let's talk about a part two. Now, don't give the whole part two answer, right? We're just showing you the phrases that we taught today and how to
Yeah.
use them. So,
I'll just show you how I would start a part 2
yes,
using one of these.
yes.
Yeah.
So the part two card is describe something you purchased recently.
It's so funny this should come up because, believe it or not, this morning I found the best travel hack. I was looking for something that could attach to the back of the seat in front of me, and I found this doohickey that holds a phone. It's
I
perfect.
love the word doohickey. So, Doohickey and thingamajig. These are 2 words that are just like instead of thing, but it's very slangy, right? If you don't know
Mhm.
the specific name for a thing, an object, and it's just this weird little device, right? Just be
It's like the
like, "This
phone holder?
thingamajig, this
Oh,
doohickey." So awesome.
and this is such a great way to introduce a part 2, so much better
Yeah.
than like, "I would like to talk about,"
"Ooh,
or,
no."
"I'm excited to tell you about this thing I bought. Oh, if you could use this instead. It's so funny this should come up because I just bought something amazing."
And if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see how my face showed my delight when Aubrey started answering. And it wasn't just, of course, she used the phrase that we're teaching you, but also it was the intonation, right? And so imagine if you can make the examiner show that face of delight, right? Automatic score increase right there, buddy.
Absolutely. Yes, right? They're interested, they're engaged. That is giving you great pronunciation scores.
Yeah. All right. Last one. Now, this would be a part 3 question. Do you think plane travel will decrease in the future?
Right. That's kind of a funny question. I mean, no. Sure, we can talk about hypotheticals like it would be good for the environment, but definitely not. I don't think this is a serious possibility at all.
And that's so true. Like, that's what I want a student to say every time
Yes.
that I ask that question. Cause, like, why even ask that? It's not going to happen. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So,
You might
yeah,
be asked a question and the only answer that makes sense is like, "Obviously not." But you
right.
can't that's you can't just say, "Obviously not." You
Right.
have to give more.
Exactly, exactly. All right. So, to summarize today, guys, you learned 4 filler phrases to begin answers, especially to questions that relate to recent experience. And that's like surprising, it's a coincidence, or just to answer a weird question. So, the 4 phrases are number 1, funny you should ask. Number 2, actually, funny this should come up because. And what are the last 2 phrases, Aubrey?
Number 3, that's kind of a funny question, or what a funny question, meaning it's a weird question. And number 4, a funny thing happened related to this.
Nice, nice. All right, guys. So if you're not watching us on YouTube, go check us out. We're fun to, watch on the screen. IELTS Energy TV on YouTube. And if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you hit follow right now.
Awesome. Thanks, Jessica. I'm excited for you guys to practice speaking answers using all of these great filler phrases.
Totally. All right. Thanks, Aubrey. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.